गुरुरेव गतिः गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोः मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो गुरुरेव गतिः गुरुमेव भजे गुरुणैव सहास्मि नमो गुरवे न गुरोः परमं शिशुरस्मि गुरोः मतिरस्ति गुरौ मम पाहि गुरो गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः गुरवे सर्वलोकानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः ब्रवीमि संस्कृतं वाचा ध्यायामि संस्कृतं हृदा कुर्वे सेवां च कायेन वन्दे संस्कृतमातरं यो नरः संस्कृतव्योम्नि आलयं रमते मुदा संस्कृतिं चैव संस्कारं विन्दते नात्र संशयः देवीं वाचमजनयन्त देवाः तां विश्वरूपाः पशवो वदन्ति सा नो मन्त्रेषु मूर्धन् जुहाना धेनुर्वागस्मानुपसृष्टुतैतु ओम शांति 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 श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ओम सर्वेभ्यः नमस्काराः सर्वेभ्यः राम 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 व्योम संस्कृत पाठशालातः उपनिषद आलोक इति वर्गे सर्वेषां हार्दं स्वागतम् अत्र अस्माकं मध्ये उपस्थिताः डॉक्टर बालाजी श्रीनिवासन महोदयाः ते विद्यावारिधि पदवीं प्राप्तवन्तः गणितशास्त्रे तेषां विशेषः अस्ति ते उपासकाः तत्र विशेषतः परमपूज्य ईश्वरानन्दगिरि स्वामिनः आप्तशिष्याः ते वेदान्त मार्गेषु प्रवृत्ताः सदा वेदांत मार्गेषु आसक्ताः वेदांत विषये उपन्यासरताः वेदांत विषये चिंतन तत्पराः सदा ते वेदांत विषयमेव चिन्तयन्ति वेदांत विषयं जीवने वेदांत विषयान् जीवने कथं अस्माभिः परिपालयितुं स्वीकर्तुं अवकाशः लभ्यते इत्यपि सदा चिन्तयन्ति तेषां उद्बोधक his speeches are very inspiring and thought provoking. It makes you think whether you are on the right track, whether what you have to do. कदाचित् अस्माकं जीवने प्रश्नः आगच्छति कोऽहं किमर्थम् अत्र अहम् आगतवान् अस्मिन् किमर्थम् एतादृश जन्म प्राप्तवान् मम जन्मनः फलं किं मया किं कर्तव्यम् एतादृश विचाराः अस्माकं मनसि सदा आगच्छन्ति these kind of thoughts who am I what for I have taken this birth what is my role in this birth what is the future these kind of questions are there in everyone's mind so the Upanishad tries to answer all these questions and Dr. Balaji Srinivasan is here to give us that light of Upanishads based on the work of his Guru, Paramapuja Ishwarananda Swami's work on Upanishad Aloka. His Guru's work is also titled Upanishad Aloka, which he will use as the base to explain to us the basic tenets of the Upanishads and try to enlighten us in the path of Sanatana Dharma. This course, as I would like to just tell you in the beginning, is not a course which will teach you Upanishads. Those who have thought that, I will get to know all the Upanishads by Padashaha, Vakyashaha, Isha, Vasyamidam, Sarvam, that it is not going to teach you the Upanishads. It is not going to teach you the Taittiriya, Aittiriya, any Upanishads. It is only going to give the essence and tenets of Upanishads. So that is one of the things that we wanted to clarify in the beginning. We wanted to say that this, it would be better if we have some knowledge of Vedanta, and if we some knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, etc. If we have some knowledge, it will be very useful to attend this course and to understand this course. We can ask any questions to the teacher. He actually, Balaji Srinivasan loves questions, provided they should be related to the topic and they should be related to the Vishaya. And please keep the questions related to the Vishaya only and related to the topic. And also, we would like to have the question hour at the end, wherein you can answer these questions, ask these questions, and Mahodaya will answer one by one. There, if you have further questions and if you are unable to ask those questions in the class, you want to have a sort of a discussion or something, you can, or it is a detailed question, you can feel free to write to Sanskrit from home at vyomalabs.in, where these questions will be forwarded to the teacher and he will answer it in the next class, in the question hour session. This is how this class will be structured. Over to Usha Bhagini for other rules related to the Zoom webinar and the discipline related to the webinar. Dhanyavadaha. I once again welcome Dr. Balaji Srinivasan Mahodaya on behalf of all the staff and all the staff at Vyoma and all the students who have assembled here. We have more than 150 students assembled here. It is for an Upanishad kind of a topic. I think Bhagavan has graced us with so many people. I think we are very happy that all of you have made time to attend this course. Once again, Hardam Swagatam Balaji Srinivasan Mahodaya for accepting to do this course through Vyoma Labs and enlightening our audience. We are very sure, we are confident that all of us will get answers to our probing questions that we have in our mind. Dhanyavadaha, Swagatam, Swagatam, Suswagatam. Ram Ram Ram. Over to Usha Bhagini. उषा भगिनी कृपया आरंभं करोतु। न श्रूयते।
स्क्रीन शेयरिंग मास्तु।
I think
yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry for that. It was like taking the whole thing. Yeah, now maybe yeah, once it's like the screen. I have to show the PPT and explain. So that is the reason I am using the screen. Hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
So welcome to one and all. We are very blessed to have this session. My pranams to the whole Sabha. Namastabhaya. First thing, this is being conducted on the Zoom webinar, Zoom tool. So we will have 2 reminder emails. One is, this is a weekly webinar, so we'll have one before 24 hours and one reminder email before 1 hour of the session. So that join link the students can use to come into the. So please keep checking your mail IDs, because sometimes it might go into the spam, update, another promotion folders, etc. sometimes. So please check there also for the reminder email. You will find them, and once you mark them not spam and you shift them into the inbox, then from the next time you will have it in your mail inbox. Then this Zoom tool is available on PC, Android and iOS. All kinds of devices will support this Zoom. So you can log in through any of the devices, provided you have a good like connectivity and all. Internet connection should be good. That's the only required criteria. Then for a better experience, please use headphones so that you don't miss the details. Sometimes you might have some problem because of connectivity. Even that things will ensure that if you are logged in, you are using headphones, then things will be clear and easily available for you. Then if you want to ask any questions, please raise hand, but please note that the question answer session will be only in the end of once the main session is complete, then only you have the last 15 minutes session will be the question answers. Then you can raise hands and we will unmute you. Please keep your microphones, intact so that you can be audible to all of us clearly. And please keep the background noise free. Please keep your please choose the place such a way that while you are asking questions, other people talking in home or other things should not distract the class. Then another way, if you don't want to speak directly, you want to type something and ask us, then there is a question and answer button which you can use. There you can type your question. See, it is the type your question here. So you can type it and we'll get it. And we can answer in your text, or if the sir chooses, we can answer in the live class as well. Then to use once you want to ask a question and you want to, then this is the mute button. To unmute yourself, you have to press this button. Once if you have any problem in the meeting, you can leave the meeting and come back. For that, this button can be used. Some issues might come up sometimes because of the internet, then no need of you can't see the video, you can't hear the audio, then please leave the meeting and come back. Then it will just using the same link, then it will be rectified. Next, this Zoom meeting has, this webinar has 500 attendees maximum limit. So please try to be in time so that you don't miss the chance in case. So this is not applicable. Then one important note, please close all the other applications which are using internet on your device. Once you are in here, so please switch it up so that we will have a continuity in the speech and there will be no audio or video glitches kind of some problems. Then the very important question which people ask is like, once we get a chance to hear, but we might not have the whole experience, we want to come back to the lecture once again, we want to hear it. Yes, you do have a chance for that. We record this video live and then we put it on the course page. Something called course page exists. I'll show you just a while after. There you can access it at a later point of time. So please give us at least 4 or 5 days time, because our volunteers help us to upload the material into the page, and after at a later point, then only you can have the video in that. Then if you have any doubts, see how to access the course page and all. If you have any doubts, then we have an email ID where your queries can be replied. It is sanskritfromhome@vyomalabs.in. You can note it down and please write to us on that. So now for the course page, I'll show how the course page looks for the beginners. And again, share. So this is the home page of our. Where has it gone? Yeah. So this is the home page of ours, and once you click this, the banner is there as a slider. You please click this, and you will reach this page. So once you, after at a later point of time, you will find the lessons here at this portion. So once you are a registered user of this portal, then it should be helping you to take this course. It will be in the form of take this course. I will show you another page so that it will be clear for you. So some other course where the material is already there, I'll just show you. Yeah. So this button will look at take this course. You just press it, then it will change it as if you are a subscribed user, then it will change it to unsubscribed now. Otherwise, it will say please register. So it will be available for only registered users. So the lessons will be in this way. In this page, you don't find any lessons. But here, see here, after that, it will be liquid. See here, the lessons are there. So this way you can access the lessons. So here I end my presentation, and I'll give the controls back to sir. Sir, welcome, sir. We are eagerly waiting for your lecture. I don't want to take more time. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Can you hear me? May I start?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Please start. Yeah,
You
we
can-
can hear you. Yeah.
You can
Om
start.
Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavad Vyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. First, I offer my namaskaras at the feet of my Guru, Swami Ishwarananda Giriji. And of course, my own Sanskrit Guru is here, Venkat sir. Offer my pranamas to him as well. As he mentioned, we are going to enter into consideration of the Upanishad. We're going to try to get a sense of what is this Upanishad, what's the subject matter of the Upanishad, how do we approach it, why do we approach it. And I consider myself fortunate to be able to teaching it, especially to the modern generation in a modern context. You know, when you're a person living in a modern, especially city life, even in India, when you're in that mental frame, it's sometimes hard to understand where this Upanishad comes from and how it relates to that frame of work of life that you're experiencing every day. And when you hear someone tell you something, some seemingly esoteric knowledge of, say, Vedanta or Bhagavad Gita, and some principles that are really quite different from what you might imagine the principles by which you normally lead life, you might wonder where it all comes from. So if you hear somebody expound some deep principles, you wonder where it all came from. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, when Bhagavan was explaining to Arjuna was, asking all these questions in the beginning, and suddenly when Bhagavan finally got a chance to speak, the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan expounded the entire secret of the Upanishad. And at the end of expounding the secret of Upanishad, the second chapter, Bhagavan saw a puzzled face on Arjuna's, puzzled expression on Arjuna's face. He must have also thought, where is this, he was just the charioteer, and where he's telling me all this, where he got all this from. So Swayam Bhagavan himself had to make a disclaimer. He has to say, I have told you nothing new. This is an age-old wisdom. Unfortunately, it goes through cycles of waxing and waning like the moon. And occasionally, the light has to be pointed out by somebody. Bhagavan says, Kale neha mahata yogo nashtaf parantapa. Because of the passage of time, these secrets that are known become less known. And when they become less known, then people not able to understand the context of that. So someone has to tell these to people. And I am very lucky, because when Venkat sir asked me if I can tell, I didn't have to say how will I tell and how will I structure and Upanishad to people who don't know Upanishad, how to tell, because my Guru had given these lectures in Gujarat University. And he had given the lecture with the exactly same uddeshya, how to tell, giving Upanishad to people who are just college students, nothing to do with Upanishad, not even Bhagavad Gita, Kinchidadita, none of that, just going about their normal lives like all of us do. And and he talked to them, and that was transcribed in a book that called Upanishad Alok, Gujarat University series. It was transcribed by somebody there. It was kind of a, I would say, a very rough and ready transcription. Swamiji's Hindi is very fine. Somebody must have been writing it, understanding as much as they could. So it is a little bit rough and ready, and it required some redoing. Swamiji had once asked me to see if I could do something and, recast and put in some more filler into it. I've been waiting for the opportunity to do that. This is the perfect opportunity. So I don't have to do anything, just add a little bit clarification and English also. So because I do not know Hindi, but this is the English audience, so all suits me fine. So I don't have to do much. I just have to present what he told those people, and I'll sound very good because I'm telling what Swamiji is saying. So just like Krishna said, I sound very good because I'm telling what the gurus have said. So when the guru is in front of you, if he's a good guru, the moment he starts being a guru, he has to entirely cast away his personality and only show Dakshinamurti, like Krishna did. So Swamiji did that also when he was talking to us. So it was always a very fantastic experience. So I'll take a little trouble to try to present this in some easy and natural manner that does not require any prior knowledge of Shastra. Because this matter of Upanishad is very important, not only for every one of us, but it has got societal importance and national importance for us as well. Because all the things we do in our world, the work we do, the transactions we do, fit into a context of a society and a nation. They are not isolated. When you're transacting, you're always transacting with something else that fits into the environment around you, the nation, the society, all these things. The most trivial act of yours connects into society and the nation. So doing this, transacting like this, is the basis of being a human being. So in Sanskrit, the word for human being is Nara. Nara doesn't mean man, it means human being. Nare adhikrita nara. He who has got, I say the word he, it is not meant to be a, preference given to a certain gender. It is a person who has got the privilege to work. So when Bhagavan says karmanya eva adhikaraste, he is telling Arjuna, you are a nara. That is all he is saying. So simple thing he is saying, you are a nara. Not saying anything that, oh, this and that, and you can't do this and that. He said, you are a nara. No other organism, no matter how intelligent, or maybe it is a dolphin, very super intelligent, but it can act. It cannot do work. Only human being, Nara, can do work. So just as in every act of creation, there are so many factors, every work of a human being is an act of creation, and it has also got so many factors. And bringing those factors together, it fulfills life and injects life with the joy of living. Now that set of factors that motivate and propel the work that you do, I'm really loath to use terms, but once you start Vedanta, it is full of bubbling with terms. So I'll try to use as little as possible. Sometimes you can look, then you use Google Maharaj to see what these terms are in case you don't know what they are. Okay. So the things that propel and make this life, motivate this life are called this Purusharthas, supposed to be. What are the objectives? Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Many Western cultures play extra emphasis on Kama, but we are very careful. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, we keep it in the middle, Kama there. Okay. So just like when you are making a house, you have the foundation of Dharma, and then the pillars will be Artha, Kama. we will find out later where is moksha. So this young man or young woman who is ready to make their life, according to Shastra, before they have to enter into the life of a householder, they have to go to the Gurukula in the forest. Forest is a fine place. First of all, forest and caves and these places allow you to be by yourself. You are never really by yourself, but it allows you to be in nature. And the student life is like a Hemant Ritu. It is raining and there is a rainfall, Varsha Ritu, there's a rainfall on all of creation, and that the Guru himself is raining his wisdom on you. But when the Guru, as I told you, the Guru, not any Guru, proper Guru, his aim is not to give you something from outside you. His aim is to make something alive that is inside you. The Upanishad Aloka that we are discussing is not shortly going to be brought from that room and displayed to you, or any other room or any other Guru. It is inside you actually. Later on, the Upanishad itself will actually say, when it is looking deep inside the Panchakosha, that the knowledge of the Vedas is in fact not to be given to you. It is in fact in you. It has to be brought alive within you. Rik, Dakshina, Paksha, etc. All these are inside you, but they are in a place inside you where you do not have access to any of that stuff. So now you come in there in the Gurukula and in the quiet of the forest. You are easily avoiding getting caught too much in external trends and external phenomenon. You have an ability to get into the internal. Now, the scientific advancement of the external world, it is progressing seemingly so fast, it makes the human existence look very small in significance. In fact, the orientation required is exactly the opposite. That the human dissatisfaction and curiosity are actually at the basis of all scientific progress. But if you ask what is the real dissatisfaction of a human being, is I don't know who I am. That dissatisfaction then translates and expresses itself in so many other dissatisfactions, because there is no way to go and sort out that fundamental dissatisfaction of not knowing who I am. So the vision of the Vedanta is, like any of the great philosophical traditions, it is to know yourself, because only when you know yourself can you understand what is your place in this world. So that self-knowledge is the only thing that will help you approach life in a fulfilling and meaningful way and allow you to glimpse the truth. Now, that self-knowledge, the Upanishad posits, and we will talk about it little as we get into the Upanishad, it is not possible without a deep love. And a deep love for what? A deep love for who you are. Now, deep love for who I am, a beautiful face, a nice lipstick, a nice, what you call, clothes and all, those deep love you have, but that is not who you are. This is why the Upanishad could be specially useful to young people, because when young people discover what they love, they are unafraid, they are ready to die for that love, they are ready to embrace that thing that they love. So they just have to be taught what is it that you can really love in that way. So getting back to knowing yourself and the power within yourself, that power within yourself is what they call in Sanskrit Adhyatma Shakti. Adhyatma Shakti. It is the power within yourself. The Upanishad will let you know that in fact this is the only power in all of creation. There is no other power. So if you want to understand the world, you cannot do it intellectually, you cannot do it through transactions. You cannot do it through violent domination. You can't do it through artificial means. You have to do it genuinely with deep love and by knowing who you are. So this aspect of love is integral to many of our approaches to even the texts that you are familiar with. So for instance, in the Bhagavad Gita, there is something called Dhyana Shloka for those of you who might know Bhagavad Gita. In that we start with Amba Tvam Anusandadami Bhagavad Gite Bhavad Veshinim. You don't mind what it means for the time being. You appeal to her as Amba, the mother. The eliminating suffering and giving joy is the mother's work. That is why Bhagavad Gita is called mother. So once you accept Bhagavad Gita as the mother, then all you can do is love her, because that's all you can do with the mother. You cannot ask, is my mother's nose crooked, or does she have one less tooth? All this is not relevant, because the only thing that I see in front of me is my mother. I don't notice this little physical peculiarities. Even the greatest among men are children in front of the mother. Now, so much if you love your mother, then what about the mother's mother? We call Pati or Amamma or whatever. That will be even more. We will love even more unconditionally that Amamma. Now, who is that? If the Gita is the mother, then grandmother is Upanishad. This is the mother's mother. So the mother's mother means all the essence and the secrets that her mother is telling you, where she got it from. She got it from her mother, from the grandmother. So everything that is told in Gita comes from Upanishad. That is why when same Madhusudan Saraswati, who was a great scholar who composed this Dhyana Shloka, later on in that Dhyana Shloka, he says, Sarva Upanishad Gavaha Dogdha Gopala Nandanaha. That means all the Upanishads are like the cows. So that if you consider the knowledge of the Gita as the milk, where it came from? It came from the Upanishadic cow. Now, for those of you who might have been in a farm or seen a cow at anything less, a closer distance, you know that you cannot do much if you go in front of cow. You will not get any milk from the cow. It's not interested in giving to you, neither will you know what to do. So, who is going to take out that milk from the cow? What do you need to take out the milk from the cow? That cow has to trust you. And then, so therefore, you have to love the cow and the cow has to love you. So only person who takes the milk from the cow has to be Gopala. He has to be taking care of those cows all the time. The cows have to be feeling like, I can trust this man, this Gopala, I can trust him. So when he comes, they know he has great love for me. They readily yield the milk. So if we want to get Upanishad milk also, we also have to love the Upanishad, and we have to sit close to the Upanishad, and we have to do that like a child, because when you keep the bachada in front of the cow, the milk will flow naturally. So you have to sit next to, you have to do Upasana of the Upanishad with the simplicity of the Gopala type of child, and then enter into this effort in a loving way, but also in a playful way. Now, when you grow older, naturally it is harder and harder for you to be playful. And suddenly, instead of playing with time, we find that we have become a plaything in the hands of time. So, but a young person doesn't feel that. They are enjoying the time. So you have to go to Upanishad with a sense of enjoyment. And then you regard that Gopala as the Gopala of the Upanishad, not the Gopala of the 11th chapter of those who know. That Mahakala is not. You are approaching Upanishad in a playful manner. You want to experience that joy, and you want to experience that freedom of knowing who you are while you're still in this body. That is what they call Jivan Mukti. So, and that is the only true happiness, Jivan Mukti Sukha Prapta Hetave. There is nothing else. This is the goal of life. So this jiva, so-called jiva is the, again, these are all just words we throw and we cannot translate them in simple English. And if you go in Google and you'll find jiva to be the individual soul trapped in this body. And in the body, the sorrow is natural. How is it possible to attain complete freedom and joy while still in the body? This is the promise of the Upanishad, how to make this seemingly impossible thing possible. That is the, what you call, advertisement of the Upanishad. That advertisement is attractive, okay, then you also want to buy the product, Upanishad. So what is this Upanishad? Now, Venkat sir did the whole introduction in Sanskritam. So I was looking at my other students. Many of them are not so familiar. Maybe other people are familiar with Sanskritam. But still, little bit Sanskritam you need to know what is Upanishad. So what happens is Upanishad, Upanishad. Three things it has got. Upanishad. Shad is what they call in Sanskrit a verb root. It is called a dhatu. Now we are sitting in the presence of great Sanskrita Vidwans. So what will I tell? What is Shad Dhatu? But Shad Dhatu comes many times in the Dhatu Pata. So you have to collect all the different times and it comes. And what is it? It can mean so many different things. Okay. I will tell it in English. So Shad can mean loosening. Okay. Visharane. Shad Visharane. It can mean loosening. Then Shad can also mean obtaining. Prapta, it can also mean obtaining. Then Shad can also mean avasadane. It can mean destruction. So many things it can mean. So there's this word in Upanishad. It can mean loosening, obtaining, and destruction. All these three Upanishad can give you. Now you wonder what will be loosened, what will be obtained, what will be destroyed. But before we go to that, let us look at Upa and Ni. Upa means Upasana. You have to sit next to it with lot of love. And Ni means Nishtha. So you have to approach the Upanishad with a lot of love, sit next to it for a period of time, have a deep faith in it, and then it will do the job. The verb in it will come alive. It will do loosening, it will do obtaining, it will do destroying. Now, what will it loosen? What it will loosen is the psychological effect of your life, because your life is full of work and every work seems to grab you and throttle you. The fact that work which you are doing can come back nastily and grab you and throttle you is called karma bandhana. You are doing work. You are a good person. You are doing something. Every little thing you do, today, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, it comes back to grab you. Or it might come back in the next life to grab you as a papa or a punya. Anyway, it will grab you. That is called karma bandhana. That grabbing by karma, what Upanishad does, it will loosen that. Loosening, Visharane, this is the loosening that Upanishad will do. Then, therefore you will be able to do work, but you will not be bound and attached to it. Then what it will do, you will obtain something. What will you obtain? Because you will know who you are, you will understand where the real joy is coming from. You will obtain the joy of the self. For those of you who have read Bhagavad Gita and all, this is called Brahmananda, some fancy term, Atmananda. Whatever it is, it's the joy of finally knowing who you are. And then it will also do the destruction. Once your action bondage is lost and once you know who you are, then sorrow will automatically be destroyed. So that destruction of sorrow will not be superficial. It is called Atyantika destruction of sorrow. Okay. Savirudha Moolam. So with the original cause, the sorrow will be destroyed. Permanent and deep-rooted elimination, it is called. These three meanings, loosening, obtaining, and destruction, are only relevant to Atma Jnana, not anything else. Without Atma Jnana, without knowing who you are, bonds of karma cannot be loosened. You don't know who you are. And one way or the other, until you know who you are, you will be sorrowful. If not today, tomorrow. If not tomorrow, day after tomorrow. So Upanishad also means Atma Jnana. Now, a subtle point is any secret thing is also called Upanishad. You will see later on. If it's a secret thing, it is called Upanishad. And also the essence of anything is called Upanishad. Later on, we'll see in the Upanishad, Yadeva Shraddhaya Upanishada Karoti. Upanishada Karoti means whichever you do while knowing its essence. Most of the things we do superficially without knowing its essence. So Upanishad means essence. So the rishis, today is Rishi Panchami, they are not satisfied if you merely work or even if you work with some great intellectual knowledge. They want you to work with Shraddha and always in touch with the essence of that work. If you work like that, that is called Karma Yoga. So there is a story of a Brahmin who had no children. And so when a Brahmin has no children, he doesn't have to just suffer with no children. He does lot of tapasya. Because Brahmins can do tapasya, so he does tapasya. Did lot of tapasya. He was quite old by the time tapasya was over, but tapasya was unfailing. So he had a son. So the old man had a son. Okay, he got a son. Unfortunately, the son was blind from birth. Now the Brahmana had prayed so hard for the son, so he was obsessed with this son, looked after him very carefully. Whenever the son went somewhere, the Brahmin also went behind. From the childhood, he kept on going. So born as he was from tapasya, as an exceptional child, although he couldn't see, he had an intuitive knowledge from very early age. As he is growing up, his father keeps on following him wherever he's going. So one day, pretty old, he's going for a bath in the river, father running after him in the early dawn. Son stops and said, "Why are you running like this behind me?" So his father said, "I'm running for you only." He said, "Why? Or for me, why you're running?" So father didn't want to hurt his son. He said, he didn't say, "You're a blind man, I have to run after you." He said, "You see, you can't see properly. No, that is why I'm running after you. Because what happens, suppose you fall, what happens?" So the son asked him, "Oh, so you can see clearly, you never fall, is it?" Father kept quiet. And the son said, "You see, you are able to see what is in front of you, but can you see what will happen tomorrow? You have no idea. Do you know where you are going in your life? You have no idea. Do you see where you will be a few years from now? You have no idea. That means you can see a little bit. You can see a little bit and you are a little blind. I am very blind. When you can't see, what will you do? Who will handle it? Just as you handle yourself in situations where you can't see, I will handle myself in situations where I can't see. You don't run after me and try to figure out what I can't see. You waste your time instead knowing who you are so that you can see better going forward." It was a lesson from the son to the father. So, until you know yourself, you can't really see anything and you can't really see what is the world, what are you doing here, all that stuff you cannot see. Now, how to get to know that? So if you are totally blind, who can help you? If you're totally blind, even one-eyed man can help you. Andhasya guru ekaksha. If you are blind, even a one-eyed man can help you. Suppose you are a one-eyed man, who can help you? Then you say, "I want a two-eyed man to help me." Suppose you already have two eyes, then who will help you? Triyaksha Vishwa Guru Smritaha. Then you need three-eyed man to help you. Three-eyed man, only one is there. None of us can suddenly become three-eyed man. So only Shiva, only Guru is there. So we have to wonder, suppose we are two eyes, I have seen my Guru, it doesn't have a middle eye like that. So what is the three eyes of the Guru? Okay. And who is the blind man? Who is the one-eyed man? Who is the two-eyed man? So in Vedanta, we have, whenever we tell a story like this, there is something called Drishtanta and Darshtanta. So the Drishtanta is the story, and the Darshtanta is what you are trying to illustrate with that story. So because I don't know, Venkat sir, today, do I talk till 7th, till what you call, that is 5 o'clock, or do I stop now for questions? In which case I will leave these questions of the Drishtanta, Dashtanta for everybody to ponder and tell next time, or I can continue 15 minutes, whichever way you want.
I think you can continue for another 10 minutes, and last 5 minutes you can.
All right. Okay. So that nobody has to do any self-thought, because I'll tell the answer now only. So who is the blind man? Blind man. Now we have to judge who they are. We will see whether it is ourselves or people we know all around ourselves. Somebody who does work without any vichara at all. Maybe he does anachara also, thoughtlessly living a life without regard to any basic rules. Now who will help him? Somebody who can at least tell him how to handle his body. If you tell him how to handle his body, how to have a bath, how to dress, how to be neat, how to talk properly, how to walk in a straight line, etc. That person, that one-eyed man who at least knows how to handle the body, can teach. By the way, when we go to a normal school, this is all we get. We get one-eyed instruction. How to handle your body. Come, teacher comes in class, stand up, good morning, sir, sit down. This is all it is taught by the one-eyed teacher. Now, what about if you handle the body? What is the next level? How to handle the psychology and the mind. So there is the physical complex and there is the mental psychological complex. So that a little bit more of an acharya can teach you how to handle your mind, how to do some meditation, how to sort of discipline your mind in thinking about things, how to think through things rationally. Again, some acharya, that is the two-eyed man, can teach the one-eyed man how to improve. But merely solving the problems of body and mind is not enough. There is a much deeper disease, and that disease is not knowing who I am. That is called ajnana. That disease is not of the body. That disease is not of the mind. It is somewhere much deeper than that. It is a knowledge. It is the fundamental disease of the manifest, so-called manifest living being, not knowing who I am. Now, this three-eyed man, that who is that? Of course, Veda is also called Trai. Veda is also called Trai. Veda is called Tri. And it is not only because that is Rik, Sama and Yajur Veda, there are three Vedas. It is called for a different reason. The reason is that an approach to actually beginning to understand who you are needs you to actually exert every aspect of your personality. And there is, in the Vedantic tradition, the human life is precious. Nothing is extra, nothing is waste, nothing is to be sidelined, and nothing is to be developed unilaterally. So this not developing unilaterally and developing, taking an integrated approach to everything is a very favorite theme of the Vedantic guru we consider seriously, Shankara. And he has got a very favorite word for it. The word is called samanvaya. For the time being, you take his English word as integration, total integration. This is not like national integration, okay, not Manipur and Gujarat altogether. This is samanvaya, personal integration. Okay. So what is that integration? Now, what are those three things you have to integrate? Is you have to recognize that a human being has got three fundamental energies of expression. These energies are pulsating inside us all the time, constantly making us act. And those energies are the energies to do, to feel, and to know. Okay. And all the time, if you know, you experience yourself, one of these energies is bursting out of you and making you act. So this is called volition, cognition, and emotion. Okay. In every person, if you notice, one of these things is developed more than the others. Somebody will be a great intellectual, but be a very lazy man, will not get out of his desk. Other man will be super active, but cannot understand anything. Other man, when you say word Rama, he'll be crying, but if you go take Vedanta lecture, he'll be asleep in 2 seconds. There'll be different people, or each one has got different thing developed. Shankara expects us to develop all of them, because to this Trayi that we have in us, this is called Kriya Shakti, Ichcha Shakti, and Jnana Shakti. These Shaktis we have in us. The Veda comes and, like a locking mechanism, exactly has the 3 things: the Karma Kanda, the Upasana Kanda, and the Jnana Kanda, exactly fitting into this. So the Karma Kanda and the Upasana Kanda have got to do with Dharma, what to do. And then the Jnana Kanda is to know. Now, doing in the Karma Kanda and knowing of the Jnana Kanda are connected by a strange emotional connector called Bhakti. So Karma Kanda has got to do with your volitional tendencies. Jnana Kanda has got to do with your cognitive tendencies. And in between them, mixed up in a way that is very hard to extricate, is your emotional self. So the Veda attends to this separately. It allows you to purify and offer each thing at its highest level. In fact, as you know, when you act, your emotions are involved. When you know, your emotions are involved. When you act, sometimes knowledge is not involved. When you know, action is not involved. But emotion is there, tied up in the middle of everything. And so you have to be able to separate these things out as well as integrate all of them. So when you take this, you take yourself fully as a acting, feeling, knowing entity. The Upanishad teaches us how to take ourselves in that way and starts opening up pathways for us to organize ourselves. Organize these things so that what? So that we can begin to look inward to something that is beyond the acting, beyond the feeling, and beyond the knowing even. Okay, it is almost mind-blowing and spectacular, powerful discipline for development of all of humanity. It is not just some Hindu thing, it is not some Hindu religious thing and all. I know we are all here wearing vibhuti and kumkum and all. This is nothing. This is just fundamental to human condition. Venkat sir, I've come to the end of it, so I want to say one thing about this. I cannot stop without saying it. So I'm going to finish, and then I have some time if people have time to want to ask any questions. But this is a very fundamental power of the Upanishad. It is such a spectacular thing. It is going to take you beyond the things that you know about yourself. But before it does that, it's going to teach you how to put those things in proper place before you go beyond them. It is such a mind-boggling and powerful message, and it is encoded so deeply, it's not obvious when you read it what it is. But the power of it is so strong. I'm going to tell you how to believe the power is so strong and how the Upanishad has reached the world. And I don't know if you know the story of how the Upanishad reached the world, but you might know that there was an emperor of India called Aurangzeb, right? Aurangzeb, everybody knows now in terms of Ayodhya and Kashi Vishwanath. If you go, you will find the Gyanvapi mosque there that he built by breaking the very cruel fellow Aurangzeb was. His brother was not a cruel fellow. I don't know if anybody knows brother of Aurangzeb. His brother's name was Dara Shikoh. Dara Shikoh, that guy was a mystic. And because he was a mystic, he was executed by his own brother when it got too much. So what Dara Shikoh did was he translated the Upanishad first time into Arabic. It is called Sir-e-Akbar, the greatest mystery, he called it. And in fact, he told in that translation that in the Quran there is something called Kitab al-Makrun, or the hidden book. He said the hidden book you can't find in the Quran because the hidden book is actually the Upanishad. That's what Dara Shikoh said. And Aurangzeb didn't like it too much, so he executed him. Now, what happened is that book translation went to Saudi Arabia and all, and there was a Frenchman called Francis Bernier who found it and took it with him to France. He just took it. He didn't do anything with it. There, somebody translated it into French. Now, once it is French, it spreads like wildfire in Europe. It got to Germany. And Germany, there was a guy called Max Muller who translated it from French to German. And that book, it fell into the hands of a real intellectual called Schopenhauer in Germany. And that Schopenhauer, many years later, so many years and so many translations later, when he met Swami Vivekananda, he said, Upanishad has been the solace of my life and it will be the solace of my death. So that Upanishad Aloka, that light that is shining in the Upanishad, could survive through 5 translations and 3 continents. And yet, when somebody who was ready to receive it could receive it in the way it is meant to be received, and when they finally found somebody to discuss it with, they were able to tell Vivekananda exactly what anybody might tell in India about the Upanishad. So it is indeed a powerful aloka, but Kaleneha Mahata Yogo Nashta Parantapa, it has got, you cannot see because over time those things have got dimmed. So we hope that in these classes, we will together be able to get a glimpse of what is that light of the Upanishad. And there may not be many questions today because it is just an introductory talk to introduce you to how we are going to do. Next time we'll get a little bit more into detail of the Upanishad and how it proceeds. Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. I might take one question, Usha ji, if anything is there. Otherwise, we can adjourn to the next time.
I can read out the questions, Balaji sir. The first question, there is one question from Kalavati. She's asking, what is Aloka?
Word meaning? You are better qualified to tell, sir.
No, but
it is a light. It is just a light.
Right. Okay. Next question. Can you suggest an introductory book on Upanishad?
Can I suggest an introductory book on Upanishad? No, I cannot suggest. Don't know any good. Let us go through these classes and then I will suggest. There are books of my teacher, but they are not widely available. So I will find a way to get some of those books and find a way in Bangalore to have those books available. We have a bookstore in Bangalore in somebody's house. Once I find it, I'll tell what that is. Then they can get it.
Then there is a question from Sujata Odha. Is there any specific reason why Purnamadaha, why this shloka is recited at the beginning and at the end of the session? Why not any other shloka?
No, you can recite any shloka. There are many Shanti mantras associated with various Upanishads. Everyone will recite which is it that they are most dear to them, or which their guru has been reciting, which is in my case. I am merely being a copycat.
Right. Is there any, can you please, there is one question from Pete. Can you please clarify how Vedas and Upanishads are related and are different?
I'll tell that in the next time. It will come in one of the classes. Yeah.
Right. Then there is one.
I will tell for that student one hint which you can think. Veda is Veda. Upanishad is also called Vedanta. So maybe you can speculate why it is called Vedanta. We will discuss that later.
Next question, is Upanishad the most important part of Veda?
Most important is to know yourself.
Okay. Next question, please elaborate more on Trayi. Maybe you can do it in the next class.
Yes. Yeah.
I think these are the questions. A very exciting session, heightening the curiosity. Some other things are.
Or remark. They have made remarks. Okay.
Some remarks are there, but we can read it later.
Yes.
Why secrets are kept hidden? Why moksha is attained by self-effort? Kalavati
If it
has
is
asked.
not hidden, it will not be a secret. So that is a definition of secret, that which is hidden. So secrets are by definition kept hidden. Why is moksha what?
Why moksha is attained by self effort?
We have to come to that. Moksha is far away, So we have to
Yes,
come to that.
we have to come to that. Okay, those are the questions, Mahodaya. I think we can close this.
Okay, good. So next Sunday at the same time, I'd be glad to continue.
Dhanyavadaha. Thanks for all the questions. Thank you very much. Dhanyavada, Balaji Mahodaya.
Om Namah Parvati Pate Har Har Mahadev.
Namaste. Namaste.